There are two things that I haven't told my listeners. One of them is that I've been a student of Rav Dror for almost 4 years. In March, it'll be 4 years. The reason I tell you this is that we remember things that are important to us. We remember when they started, when they began. It's kind of like we remember birthdays or anniversaries, when our children were born, when our grandchildren were born. Of course, our wife's birthdays, we have to remember. And when a person becomes a choser b'tshuva, he also remembers when things happened. He can tell you, he'll remember when he observed his first Shabbat. He can tell you when I put tefillin on, how long it took me before I was able to put tefillin on, when we began to keep kashrut at home, when I went to mikveh for the first time, and he'll tell you the story of how he got there. What I would like to tell you now is the story of one of the difficult things that happened to me. Actually, all these things that happen to a choser b'tshuva, when he first begins, they're very difficult for them to do. He says, mikveh sounds good, but I'm never going to go to mikveh. I hear it's dirty or it's difficult or I've never been there before and I'm scared to do it. And eventually he does it and he remembers the story. Everything that is difficult eventually becomes a possibility. And if he has the ratzon, the will to do something, it will come about. One of the things that's most difficult for me is the concept of kavanah. How can we ever daven with kavanah? The word kavanah, many people translate as meaning concentration. But the word kavanah actually means direction. A kivun is a direction. A kavanah means having direction. What do we mean by having direction? Having direction means being able to direct our prayers only to Hashem, which is a very difficult thing to do. When we go to shul, there's distractions everywhere. A baby crying, something falls, a siddur falls. You're up there and there's so many noises and distractions in shul that it's hard to have concentration. There are things on your mind, and you say, how can I do it? How can I concentrate only on you, Hashem? We have to learn to direct our feelings towards you, kavanah, and somehow wipe out everything that is happening around us. And one evening in my hitbodeduyot, again on the porch, I was discussing the idea of kavanah with Hashem. And I told him that I'm a chazan very often. I lead the tefillot in shul a lot. And so many times I feel that I'm singing a song because my wife likes it. Or I'm singing a song quickly that's usually sung slowly because I feel that the tzibur, the congregation, wants to finish quickly today. But I want to pray to you. I want to concentrate and direct my prayers only to you. My wife, it doesn't matter. The congregation doesn't really matter. It's how I feel at that moment and how I want to pray to you. And I told Hashem, how do we get that concentration? How is it ever possible to completely concentrate on one thing, to direct our thoughts just towards you, and nothing else seems to matter? And I was going on and on and on and talking to Hashem, going into this and going into that. And I was so deeply concentrating on the topic of kavanah that I did not realize that it had begun to rain. When I realized that it was raining, I was already wet. My clothing was wet. My face was wet. And it seems that all these things that are difficult, that we look at difficult to go to minyan, difficult to go to mikvah, difficult to put tefillin on, do not depend on us. They are all gifts from God. God decides when you will have concentration, when you will have kavanah, direction in your life. When you're going to put those tefillin on, you have the ratzon, you want to do it. But Hashem decides when. Ratzon, the will of doing something, gives us more emunah in Hashem. When we have this emunah, and the more we acquire, the more ratzon we'll have. Ratzon will make these things easier for us to do. The ratzon will help us accomplish everything that we want to happen.